Okay, picture the cloud as this massive, impregnable fortress. Inside this fortress, your data is locked away in a high-security vault, protected by layers of thick steel walls. You're told it's completely isolated from the vaults right next door, but what if I told you that the vault's walls aren't actually being breached from the outside? What if, instead, the very mechanisms designed to make the vault operate faster are allowing someone in the adjacent vault to quietly read your most sensitive secrets, completely bypassing the locks?
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a pretty massive conflict right at the heart of modern computing. We're going to explore how hardware optimizations, features specifically engineered to make modern servers blisteringly fast, are actually breaking the core security models of the cloud.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to dismantle this illusion of isolation, look at how hypervisors actually get bypassed, break down the three phases of these attacks, check out guest and host threats, and finally, figure out how we rebuild those security walls. All right, part 1. The illusion of isolation. Let's establish our baseline here. When you rent space in a multi-tenant cloud setup, you are literally sharing physical hardware with dozens of complete strangers.
And the only thing keeping your stuff separate from theirs is a piece of software called the Hypervisor. This is the foundational fortress of the cloud. It manages the virtual machines, or VMs, and it enforces strict multi-tenant isolation. Normally, it's the absolute strongest security measure we've got in these environments. The whole point is that if you're in VM A, VM B is supposed to be a completely different universe. Zero communication, zero shared memory. Which brings us to part 2, bypassing the hypervisor. Because here is where reality crashes into the intended design. Those fortress walls aren't actually being knocked down, they're just being bypassed entirely. Okay, so let's dive into the core culprit here, speculative execution. You see, modern processors are incredibly fast, way faster than the memory they pull data from. To avoid just sitting there twiddling their thumbs waiting for data, the CPU actually guesses which path the code is going to take and starts running ahead. It's kind of like a race condition. If it guesses right, boom, massive time saved. But if it guesses wrong, it trashes the work and starts over. Sounds great, right? Well, here's the fatal flaw. Even when it throws out that speculative work, the CPU accidentally leaves behind these microscopic data footprints in its cache, and those tiny footprints can expose your most sensitive data right across those supposedly secure boundaries. To actually pull this off, attackers exploit specific primitives. We're talking things like conditional branch misprediction, indirect branch misprediction, and exception deferral. Basically, these are clever little tricks that force the CPU down a speculative path it has no business taking. And by doing this, the CPU completely ignores standard privilege modes, it completely ignores the hardware-enforced boundaries that the hypervisor relies on. So the hardware is effectively betraying the software security model, handing an attacker the ability to reach straight across inter-VL boundaries.
So on to part 3, the 3 phases of attack. How does an attacker actually weaponize those tiny footprints? Well, it's incredibly systematic. It's basically the anatomy of a digital heist.
Every speculative execution side-channel attack boils down to 3 distinct phases. First up is priming. The attacker sets the system into a specific initial state, usually by flushing out certain cache lines so they're totally clean. Second, we have triggering. This is where they force the CPU to speculatively run a disclosure gadget, basically code that touches a secret and leaves a footprint in that freshly cleaned cache. And finally, phase 3, observing. The attacker measures exactly how long it takes to access the cache again to figure out what that secret information actually was.
So where is this observation actually happening? Well, in a multi-core processor, your level 1 and level 2 caches are private to a specific core, but that level 3 cache, that's shared across the entire processor. And that shared L3 cache becomes the ultimate observation channel. By using techniques like prime and probe or flush and reload on those shared memory pages, an attacker can literally time the cache accesses. They use those microscopic timing differences to reconstruct your secret data, bit by bit. Crazy, right?
Let's move to part 4, guest and hypervisor threats. Let's see what happens when the tenants in your cloud environment decide to turn malicious.
We are basically looking at 2 devastating scenarios that completely break modern virtualization security. First, you have guest to guest. This is where a total stranger, renting space on the exact same physical server as you, uses those shared cache lines to snoop on your private data, like stealing your cryptographic keys. But the second scenario is even worse. Hypervisor to guest. This is where a malicious VM goes after the hypervisor itself, or the privileged root partition, essentially reading the memory that controls the entire physical server. Take an advanced attack like a half-specter exploit, for example. An attacker's virtual CPU can just continuously trigger a gadget inside the hypervisor. This forces the hypervisor to speculatively load highly classified data directly into the level 1 data cache. And because the attacker is sharing that exact same physical core via hyperthreading, a sibling thread can just immediately leak that secret data out. They are literally weaponizing the hypervisor's own code against it. There's no brute force, it's an inside job.
Okay, part 5, strengthening host security. How on earth do we fix a flaw that is literally baked right into the silicon? We've got to rebuild those fortress walls.
Since we can't exactly go and rip out all the physical hardware across the globe, we have to fight back using software and memory management. First, we remove the hypervisor's physical map to shrink the target area an attacker can even look at. Second, we split the user and kernel page tables, you might know this as KVA shadow on Windows, so sensitive kernel memory just plain isn't there when user code is running. Third, we map guest memory as non-cacheable. And fourth, we completely stop sharing physical pages across different guests.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that we are attacking the attacker's methodology. Remember, speculative execution relies completely on that observation channel, the shared cache. By splitting the page tables and stopping shared physical memory pages, we are physically removing sensitive content from vulnerable zones. We are effectively blinding the attacker. Think about it. If they can't share a page, they can't flush and reload it. The side channel becomes entirely useless.
But here's the catch. Stopping page sharing and flushing caches, it comes at a cost. And that cost is performance. The exact same architectural optimizations that made the cloud so blisteringly fast are the ones that created these hardware vulnerabilities in the first place. By turning them off to ensure isolation, things slow down. So the big question every IT pro and cloud admin has to wrestle with now is this. In the modern digital age, are we ultimately willing to sacrifice all that speed for the absolute, true security of our data? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the systems you build on.